meeting is being recorded.
Welcome everyone to Wednesday's live Q&A with me, Mark Rice. Right, just letting a few people in. Hey Kerry, I can see you've just come in. How are you?
Hi.
How are you? You okay?
Yes, I'm good, thank you.
Very good, very good. Well, we'll have people maybe drop in and drop off as they please. So first and foremost, we have got a few things to cover, but I guess whilst we've got you, Kerry, one to one. It'd be really good to understand a little bit about where you're up to, obviously in terms of any questions you've got, and anything you want to ask me in particular.
Where am I up to? Okay, it's been a bit of a slow start. I think I started a bit sooner than I'd had anticipated, and I've had a lot going on with work, so it's taken me a while to kind of get into it. But I think I had a bit of an epiphany yesterday because I had the most stressful day ever, and it totally threw me, and it's actually put me on the right course. So I've took on board your comments previously, and I'm using the nutrition spreadsheets. I'm using my Fitness Pal to log food now as well. The workouts is the one thing that has been going well and been going steady. The only thing I was going to mention was, is it possible to add in a couple of short ones into my list so that I can pick out a couple of maybe 7-10 minute ones? Because there's a couple of days that I'm going to struggle where I was maybe planning on doing a workout, but time's going to be a bit tight.
Yeah, of course. I don't know if I've shown you this yet, Kerry. So what I have a workout called I Don't Have Time to Workout program, right?
Okay.
And it's a very simple framework, but have you ever heard of something called Tabata?
No.
Okay, I'll share with you the screen just so I can explain where you can find it and how easy it is to apply. So the beauty of this is really you can apply it to any length of time that you've got, minimum obviously of 4 minutes, but it could be 4, it could be 8, it could be 12. So depending on how much time you've got available, depends on how you'll structure that workout. It requires zero equipment. However, it's a very effective way to really accelerate the heartbeat, get into some good cardiovascular workouts with like I say, using your own body weight particularly. So if you come into the classroom, just go back to there and go to the Ultimate Body Transformation course. Obviously you're new, so you've probably not. Have you got through any of these modules yet, Kerry?
Yeah, I have. I've gone through the get starting. I've gone through all of that. And I did listen to your one-to-one with Katie.
Brilliant. Okay, great stuff. So yeah, this is where the course content is really about the education for people to learn, develop, and grow. And it covers a lot of different things like habit formation, and we're going to talk about intermittent fasting today's lesson, but and how we can look at the getting from burning sugar into burning fat. But this particular module here, module 8, explains to you how to leverage Tabata. Now, very simply, what this video says is it's a 4-minute workout that you can do 1 round for 4 minutes, or you can do 2 rounds, 8, 12. Very simply, you do 20 seconds of work, 10 seconds of rest, 20 seconds of work, 10 seconds of rest. In that process, again, you're just going to pair exercises together. Now, I've given you a list here of 20 different exercises that typically require little or no equipment. So things like box jumps, things like squat jumps, things like mountain climbers, burpees, everyone's favorite, jumping jacks, right? So literally what you can do is there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can just do one exercise for 8 rounds. So 20 seconds of work, 10 seconds of rest. So let's just use burpees, 20 seconds, 10 seconds of rest. Burpees, 20 seconds, 10 seconds of rest. Bit monotonous and also can be quite challenging if you select burpees, right? The other way to do it is you can pair it with another exercise. So you do 2 exercises. So you might go from burpees into press-ups, let's say, or tricep dips, or high intensity skipping. So it's something that's going to test you, get your heart rate up, for example, if I held a 20-second plank, that wouldn't do that. So again, you want to try and think about something that's high intensity, ideally, like mountain climbers, high knees, jumping jacks, that type of thing. So pair the two, or you can pair four, and obviously you're doing the circuit twice, or you can do 8, which you're doing 8 different exercises. I'd only really recommend that. It gets a bit confusing if you're doing it in a group setting. If I was training like 20 people, I'd have them going around 8 different stations, but the rest of the time I just keep it super simple, 2 exercises. And the beauty of this is as well is if you go down to these links down here, if you've got Spotify or iTunes or even YouTube, you can go to these and it'll take you to the playlist called Tabata Songs. And you basically select a song that you like, and it will count you in and count you out. So you don't have to look at a timer. You have got some, motivation of the music, whatever you select, as well to keep you going, to keep it fun. So you literally hit play, get to work, and like I say, 1, 2, 4, or 8 exercises, whichever you select to basically do that. That's how I would do a quick workout. That's why it because it's nice and simple. You can pull that lever anytime. I can absolutely put you a circuit style of workout together, but again, maybe restricted on the equipment that you've got access to. But that's a real effective one that you can just use.
And how do you drag? Whenever I've completed a workout and I log it, do you get to see that?
I do. I only track it on the 1-to-1. So effectively, where I'll go in, I'm just going to try and bring up my phone so I can show you. Team viewer. So I only track workouts when I'm tracking a client 1-to-1. Obviously, in the group setting, Kerry, it's basically past you the personalized training program for you to follow. What if you want to log all of the info, obviously for your own records, then what you want to do is come into the group. What I do keep an eye on, just again, this is more for information purposes, is when I go into the console, I'll look at when people have recorded their weight, right, or measurements or photos. That's where I'll go in and go, okay, is Kerry making progress? And then if I see no, obviously, 1, reach out to me, don't wait until this call. 2, use your weekly commitments form, which I know you're doing as well, Kerry. And then 3, obviously, I will randomly actively reach out to you and say, I can see you updated your weight, well done, or I can see you updated your weight, let's look through your nutrition. And again, that's where we can get a little bit more particular, so I might ask you to track your data for a bit, if you're not already tracking, and then come into it and look at that data. So yeah, in short, not looking at the workouts and going into the detail of that, but I would look at that data if somebody was reaching out to me saying, I'm struggling and I'm not making progress. I'll look for every aspect. So even if the client isn't recording it, I'll ask them what workouts are you doing? How many are you doing a week? So we can start to look at it. When I am tracking a client 1-to-1, and this is again what you can do is you can track through on your nutrition scorecard. I would recommend making sure that the 2 correlate. Let me just see if I can get into that Excel spreadsheet first. I don't know why it's not coming up. There we go. Okay, so this number up here, remember when you put it in, that is taking into account the activity you're doing for the week. Yeah. If you're not doing, let's just say in this case, 1 to 3 workouts per week, then that number needs to be adjusted. In fact, one of the clients said, I'm going to work out 4 times a week. And I've been tracking his workouts. This is a 1-to-1 client, tracking his workouts. He's been doing average of 3 for the past 3 weeks. So I just said to him, look, you're not where you wanted to be in terms of workouts, which is cool. But instead of this number being 1.55, which has got you moderately active, let's just make this adjustment here. If it was this client, for example, moderately active, his calorie range will just come down with it because he's expending less energy as a result. So instead of 2,200 calories, he'll be at 1,900 calories. And then obviously that translates into his weekly target. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So really just looking at that and going, is the answer that I put in terms of my activity level congruent with my weekly training that I'm doing as well?
But if I did, so I'm targeting 5 workouts a week. So if I did 3 or 4 of the sort of half-hour ones, and then 1 or 2 of them was only the shorter ones, would I still be at the 1.55 on that spreadsheet?
Yeah, I would absolutely put you at that. So again, it would be sufficient for sure. The other key thing is as well, that kind of tips you over is your step count. So if somebody's doing like 1,000 to 2,000 steps a day, let's say, and they're doing 4 workouts, you could potentially say that person's lightly active rather than, because again, if you're doing a workout, 1 hour workout 4 times a week, that's 4 hours out of the week. If you're doing 10,000 steps a day, there's a lot of activity that's going on there, which is equally burning as much in terms of caloric intake and caloric spend. So yeah, we're just looking at some of those things to make sure we're getting enough. But what really is the key point here, Kerry, is that the data will show us, right? Because if the inches are not coming down, the weight's not coming down, and it's saying, remember, it's an approximation, that calculation that we start with. If nothing's changing, then I would recommend bringing down the caloric intake by 250. Go again per day times by 7. Go again for a week. Now we should start to see the needle shifting, because again, it could just be that activity level is less, therefore calorie expenditure is less. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, again, when on the phone, what I'll see, like I say, is I'll see any updates on the measurements front. Is there any other questions, Kerry? Whilst no. Okay.
Oh, good, thanks.
Cool. I'll just share the screen so you can see it. So yeah, you can see here, whenever someone's done a workout, I see it in this list. So well done, Michael. I can see you did your workout 5 hours ago, back in biceps. I don't know if you're there, Michael.
Yeah, I'm there, mate. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, again, I can see that Michael set his new personal best for free on what he's done. And that's the key, is that what you should be getting at the end of that workout when you track it is the high five to say you beat personal best or you've achieved, your 20th workout. Like, look out for those, because the progressive overload is so important in the training aspects. We should be, just effectively doing the same weight, same reps every week. We're constantly pushing the boundary. Okay, Michael, whilst I've got you on, any questions from your side?
Not particularly. I just seen there was a meet today, mate, and I had some time with being offshore. I seem to have more time when I'm here than I do when I'm at home, mate. Even though I'm in work. Only question. I mean, I don't know how long I've been on it for now, Mark. Was there meant to be a changeover at some point?
Yeah, when we've hit like a plateau on your training, we can transition you over to another phase of training. So again, where are we up to? Let's have a look, because I can't remember what date you started. I think you started, was it March?
Sounds about right, Mark. Yeah.
March. Let me have a look.
Just gone past me, I think, mate.
Oh yeah, there, yeah. So yeah, it was the 2nd of February. So yes, February, March, April, May. Yeah, I typically will say a 3-month we should see a sufficient amount of progressive overload in that style of training. So again, we can transition you to a phase 2 of training. Yeah. So
I mean, whatever suits. I mean, obviously, I think the heavyweights for me, I think probably have more effect on weight loss for me personally. But yeah, as I say, I don't. I'm sort of at that point where yeah, it's not. It's coming off in small, but as you say, it's more like body composition that you mentioned rather than weight, isn't it? Really. So
yeah.
I'm sort of stuck around. I can't weigh myself that accurately out here because of the vessel movement, but I think I'm around 92 kilos,
Okay.
91 kilo.
Yeah, I mean, look, again, another when probably when you're not working away because you are limited, obviously, to the food that you can take in. Was you on last week, Michael, for where I talked about the Keto Kickstarter challenge?
No, I did see a poster, though, and I was going to have a little look at that, Mark. To be honest with you, yeah, I seen it's in the classroom, isn't it, or it's on this first page here.
Yeah, it is. Like again, this is a moment in time change, but what the benefit of this is really resetting your insulin sensitivity because you're taking out carbohydrates, so you effectively deplete your glycogen stores and start to tap into fat. We're going to talk about this today, but there's multiple ways that you can do it. Obviously, carb cycling's a lighter, more friendly approach to it, and that's obviously the longevity piece that we talked about in terms of how you can flex it around going out for meals or having fun and enjoyment in the equation, whereas keto is very much putting you in a box. Again, this is a 30-day max period that you would really run it for. You can extend, but it is going to become boring if you're doing that, and it takes out the whole principle around making this a lifestyle plan, but it gets you into a good flow. And in that, within the keto presentation slides, there's a very, very strict list of things in there that you can select from, and there's hyperlinks that take you to those ingredients as well on an online shop called Able and Cole. So again, it's all organic, all grass fed. We've got to basically go super clean for a period of time. You might just decide to do that for 10 days, right? It doesn't have to be that you do the whole 30-day run, but you'll see, a substantial change through that process because it's taking out one of the problems, that is meaning that we're burning sugar as opposed to burning fat, right? Because again, you pull this lever. I'm gonna explain this today, Michael, so you can sort of understand what's going on underneath the hood. But this keto Kickstarter tracker as well, it makes it so simple that you can't get it wrong unless you're not eating the food, because you're punching in your numbers, and that's automatically updating your nutrition scorecard. So you don't have to use MyFitnessPal. You're literally using that tracker, those ingredient lists, and then the only commitment from a training perspective is steps. Obviously, if you can do your strength training, do your strength training because you've got that plan. But yeah, you're not having to do anything other than the steps is the essential for fat loss, of course. So we keep that in.
Okay, mate.
Cool. Okay. So in terms of the new recipe packs, just a couple of shout outs, because I know some of you have got your teeth into the new recipes, which is great. So anyone that's new, just remember, come into the community, go to new monthly recipe packs. Every month we put out 2 new recipe packs. Katie has uploaded this. I'd love to see more of these going into the group, guys, just that people can go, I'll give that a try, because Katie rated it 5 out of 5, or whoever rated it out of 5. So again, when you try these recipes, if you can take a picture, upload it into the group, that'll be great, because then other people can see, like, oh, it's got a 5 out of 5 rating, I'm going to give it a go myself. So the potato cheese omelette also got a 5 out of 5 from Alan. So again, that's 2 5 out of 5. So again, it's going down well. The other one that Katie tried, which was another 5 out of 5, was the Greek meatballs, which is in the new recipe pack here with tzatziki. And then the one that got 4 out of 5 again is in this pack, which is the Mexican beef. So again, the more you try, the more that sticks. The whole purpose of this is the more you can try different dishes, the more likely they are to become your staple dishes. So again, that's why there's always that inspiration going into the group. I did have a question as well. Obviously, you've got your personalized meal plan in the app, and then you've got your nutrition recipe packs. So again, remember that is all just an inspiration board of what you want your day to look like. The way to piece it together is your weekly commitments form. When it asks you that question, have you planned out your meals for the week ahead? You want to be writing down breakfast, lunch, dinner, looking at all of these recipes that are available and selecting the ones that sort of take your fancy. It doesn't matter if breakfast is the same every day. It doesn't matter if lunch is the same every day. Effectively, you do it how you prefer, but the more variety, the more fun it is, and the more fun it is, the more likely it is it's going to keep you trying new dishes as well. So that's really it. When you're tracking your food, again, because I don't need to see the detail and you know what you're eating, when you're using MyFitnessPal, there's an option called Quick Add. You can click Quick Add, and then you can add in the calories and the macros, the protein, fats, and carbs from the meal. So let's just say, for instance, just fire one of these open. It'll just save you a bit of time, this as well, and just makes it super simple. But let's just say I went in and I was going to eat this, probably not that. I'm looking at a vegan recipe pack here, so you'll see. There we go. I'd eat that. Chia seeds, blueberry pancakes. So I go, okay, make that. And instead of going in, I can scan it into MyFitnessPal. So again, I can do that. But if you're using my other recipes that are in your nutrition plan, you won't see a barcode. So what you can do is you can punch in, just go to Quick Add in MyFitnessPal, and then just add in your calories, protein, fats, and carbs. And then that way, you've got a track of it in MyFitnessPal. Ignore what MyFitnessPal tells you in terms of how many calories you've got left, because it will try and compensate for activity. And obviously that's focused on the daily, where we're focused on the weekly, which allows for flexibility and fun, right? So effectively, that's how you can do it. Now, some people will go in and they'll track the food ahead of the food going in, and then they just make the change on the fly. So rather than writing down Monday to Friday, they'll add all the food into MyFitnessPal before they've eaten it. And then that's their planning process, and then they can see where they're coming on the numbers. That's like very forward planning, but in a worst case scenario, you want to be writing that stuff out. Okay. The next thing is struggling to eat enough. I hear this often, especially when somebody transitions away from, maybe ultra processed foods. But when we incorporate more protein and more fiber in the diet, it means that people get full and are staying full for longer. And the way that when this happens, there's only really two ways that you can do this easily. It may be because you're either struggling because of a time perspective, or you're struggling because you're actually full. But either way, my recommendation, and also travel are also important for when traveling, is a couple of things. First of all, meal replacements. Again, for anyone that's on the go, doesn't have a lot of time in and out of meetings, there's a company called Raw Sport. They do a low carb meal replacement. It's similar to Shield, but it's cheaper, right? So effectively, you come onto Raw Sport, you go to meal replacements, go to the low carb keto meal there at the top, and then here it is. It's 40 grams of protein. It's plant-based. So again, if you're doing the clean 10, you can have this because everything that's in here is all whole food. There's no seed oils in there. There's no gut disruption. It's got a full transparency around what's in there. You've got probiotics in there as well. And like I say, 40 grams of protein, easy on the go breakfast when time's short or you're traveling a lot. And it's all made. The reason why it's called Raw Sport, this company, is because they make everything from raw material, which is what I like. So it ticks all the boxes. There's nothing in that list of things that I don't like. So it's actually cleaner than Huel when I look at them side by side, and it's got still high protein, lower carbohydrate as well. So it isn't a keto, although it's called keto on their website, they can't call this, you can't make a meal replacement without carbs. It's a regulatory thing. So in order to call a meal replacement, it has to have protein, fats, and carbs in it, and vitamins and minerals. If it doesn't, then they can't call it that. So it's as close to keto as you're going to get, but it wouldn't support you on the keto plan. It would support you on the clean 10 plan. All right. Or just in general in your lifestyle plan for those that are not following in any of those two. Okay. So yeah, really easy addition. The other one as well is when you are either coming home late from work or busy or can't be bothered meal prepping, there's a company called Field Doctor. And Field Doctor is gut friendly frozen meals that you can throw in the microwave. So scenario is come home from work late, can't be bothered cooking, you're like, I need something to eat quick. Instead of pressing the takeaway button, you're basically tapping into these meals. I don't know why my computer's taking so long. Okay, so effectively, you are going to use these as an emergency break. So when you are, see if we can get that back to the forefront of the screen. Just brought up the news and it won't disappear. What are you seeing on your screen, Michael? You're seeing like the news on half of my page.
That's exactly what I'm saying, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what is going on. It won't disappear either. There we
And
go.
unfortunately, a lot of Man United news there as well.
I know, well, it knows what I'm looking at, you see, which is,
Yeah.
it's always terrible news at the moment.
Mine just keeps coming up champions, you know what I mean? Sorry, mate. You didn't deserve that. I'm sorry.
Mate, well, you earn it, so we're a million miles off anything like that at the moment. Yeah, so meal replacements, like I say, these are probably the best ones you can find to throw it. So frozen meals, best ones to find to just tick the box in terms of quick and easy. So I would keep these in your freezer and just throw them into the microwave if and when needed. The other way you can use them, and again, I think I've covered this in travel hacks, but there's a box called heatsbox.com. Now, this was like the first company, I believe, that come out with this concept, which is a travel-friendly meal prep Tupperware container, if you like, but it's got a heating element in it. What I love about this is that you can throw it, you can't throw a frozen meal in there, but you can throw a meal that's been cooked. So say if you make an evening meal and you make more of it the night before, you can throw that into the fridge, and then literally from that you can make sure that you're actually throwing that in there and warming it up. It'll literally take 20 minutes to heat that meal up. You can also track, you can set on the app when you want your meal. So if you go in, let's say you're eating lunch at 1 o'clock, you can specify make this meal by 1 o'clock, so it'll start that warm-up process for you. There is cheaper versions of this. Again, I've seen some on TikTok, 20 quid. But again, I don't know how good they are. Okay, so these, like I say, they're about £100, so they're not cheap, but they are probably the best version of it because they are, 2014 they've been around since, which I believe is the first, like I say. So good travel companion if you travel often, or you're falling into that trap where you're just like, whenever I travel or I'm constantly on the go and I don't want to eat cold food, this becomes your best friend in that capacity. Okay, next is on my list was going on holiday. Okay, so I want to talk to you about sort of a strategy, because it's coming into holiday season, on how to navigate around a holiday. Bear in mind, there's always going to be a holiday, a wedding, a birthday, a Christmas, some trauma. All of those things are going to happen. Let's just say these are your numbers here, and you're going on holiday that week there. All right. So we could make that, I'm going to call that, come back to the concept of red dots and green dots, red dots being enjoyment meals or enjoyment days. We make all of those days red, right? And what we're going to do, rather than focusing on the caloric target being per week, we would literally add up those cells there to sum up the total, and then we'd sum up the what we've spent here, okay, so that we can then track monthly. So rather than getting paid weekly, we're now thinking we're getting paid monthly, all right, in terms of caloric intake. So as long as that number of the weekly, the month comes in on target or there or thereabouts, you will have achieved, if it, let's just say we added up all those numbers, remember that number there is pointing to that number there, which is 1 pound of fat loss, you would have achieved 4 pounds of fat loss, right? But even still, let's just say that week there was, hitting your calorie target or even at maintenance level, which by the way is that number there times 7. Total daily energy expenditure is your baseline for staying the same, so we times that by 7. Or if you look at actually here, yeah, your maintenance calories here, you'll see that number as well, times in that by 7, and you come in on that number. That just means that for one of the 3 weeks you've lost 1 pound of fat loss. So you've lost no fat loss in that particular week when you were on holiday, whereas the rest of the weeks you come in on target and hit that number or thereabouts, you still lost 3 pounds in the week, even with the holiday in. Now, most people do overspend on holiday. So even if you overspent and you were in a surplus of, let's say, 3,500 above baseline, that means you would gain 1 pound. So you'd lose, let's say, your 3 pounds in the weeks that you were, following the lifestyle plan, and you'd gain a pound when you went on holiday, but still you would come in at 2 pounds fat loss. All right, even with the holiday in the equation. So what I'm just trying to do is shift the thinking, rather than thinking about this, right, when you've got a holiday. Remember, there is no perfect run in life. So the sooner you attach yourself to, progress over perfection and embracing these things that are always going to be there, the sooner you break that diet mentality. Okay. And that's how we do it, is basically, rather than when you're going away for a holiday, I would encourage you to do a monthly caloric spend versus a weekly caloric spend. Kerry and Michael, just as you're on, if you are listening, does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, mate.
Thank you, guys. So again, it is just such an important factor. Remember, all of this, and the reason why I built out this tool is really just that you can get away from this looking for a perfect run. And if you do have an enjoyment meal, or you plan to do something and it didn't quite go according to plan, like, don't feel guilty about that. Just accept it what it is, enjoyment, or unprepared in some scenarios, and then back onto it. So keep the red dot micro as possible, whether it's a day, whether it's an evening, try and keep that micro and then move back into it, and just embrace that that's going to happen throughout this period of time as well, and for the rest of your life, in fact. But just getting into that progress over perfections is key. Okay, so yeah, anyone that's going on holiday, start to think like that. That's just a mindset shift. Slimline wine. I think this one was for you, actually, Kerry. So I don't know if you've heard me mention this, but anyone that likes wine, there's a company called Slimline Wine, which again is a great name to remember. But they do 0 sugar wine, so it's still alcohol. And from those that have tried it and have reported back to me, they've said it tastes really good. In terms of price point, it's about £10 for 3 bottles, so it's not like overly expensive. But they do all variety of red, white, and rosé. All right, again, no sugar, lower in terms of caloric intake because there's no sugar in it. So we can get away with a little bit more, although I'm not influencing alcohol drinking here at all. Remember, when you do drink alcohol, your body prioritizes getting rid of that toxin, and it will put the brakes on fat loss, right? Because again, your body just goes, we've got to deal with this, not trying to tackle fat loss at that point. So it does obviously hinder things like your sleep and stuff like that. But what I want to share with you is, if you are enjoying it, there, I'm going to use healthier loosely here, but the healthier way to enjoy wine would be looking at these guys and, you know, and using some that's low sugar or no sugar in this case. Okay, the lesson for today is intermittent fasting. So again, anyone who's watched the sugar module can fast forward this bit, but because I'm going to cover what is in the sugar reset, or the it's time to reset. Again, sugar is a huge component of this process, because when we look at the typical American, they're having 17 tablespoons of sugar a day on average. The max amount, and remember, anyone that's watched Nutrition 101 will hear me say this sort of 30 nutrition principle: less than 30 grams of sugar, less than 30 grams of saturated fat, more than 30 grams of fiber. It's just a simple way to understand it. But the sugar component is huge, because most people in the UK average around 56 grams of sugar. The max should be 30 grams. And a lot of the sugar, without going too deep into this particular part, is down to the drinks that people are consuming. So the Starbucks that has 98 grams of sugar in, one of them. Obviously Coca-Cola, 35 grams. They're already exceeding the sugar intake with liquid calories as well. So in order to basically reset insulin sensitivity, so there's insulin resistance, which is how your body responds to sugar coming in, and in that respect it would be poorly. And is insulin sensitivity is how we improve the response. So to become more insulin sensitive, we have to do, there's a number of different ways that we can do it. I'm just going to share with you a diagram. Let me make that bigger. So first way, obviously, is we have to take sugar out of the equation. When we talk about sugar, I'm talking as well about carbohydrates here, because carbohydrates contain three components: sugar, starch, fiber. The starch is two sugar molecules bonded together, so it breaks down in terms of sugar in your body. And fiber is what is the key component for controlling the way it breaks down. So fiber is present in the food. It's complex, it's difficult to break down, therefore it keeps you fuller for longer, rather than having a spike in your blood sugar levels and then a crash. And where you crash, you crave more of it and your energy levels crash with it. So we want complex carbohydrates when we're choosing carbohydrates. But what we're doing here is we're looking at how we can deplete our carbohydrate stores, right? So when you eat food, any food that contains carbohydrates, anything that's got sugar in it, will then raise your blood sugar levels and will send a signal to your pancreas and to release insulin. Now, insulin is like, I describe it as like a bouncer knocking on the door. It's knocking on the door of a cell, all right? And, you know, when you're insulin sensitive, the bouncer knocking is effectively doing, the person on the other side of the door can hear the bouncer knocking. When you become insulin resistant, it has to knock harder, and the person on the other side of the door can barely hear it, right? So it's like, another analogy, it's like a key. If you were using the key often, the key becomes rusty over time, and that key can no longer open the cell door. That's what's known as insulin resistance. So what the first area that when glucose, which is carbohydrates, when it comes into the bloodstream, the sugar component, what it's doing is it's going, right, we need to store this and bring our blood sugar levels back in balance. So it knocks on the cell door of muscle and liver first. And once those storage tanks are full, the excess is then going into fat tissue, right? So there's accumulation of fat that's taking place as a result of too much sugar when those two storage tanks are full. Now, muscle can hold about 300 to 500 gram depending on how much muscle you've got, of carbohydrates, and liver about 100 grams. So not very much, right? Once those areas are full, like I say, the excess will go into fat tissue. So glucose gets stored in the muscle and the liver as glycogen. All right. Now, when you do strength training, you deplete your glycogen stores in the muscle. So number one, that's going to make you more insulin sensitive. Number two is when you do strength training and you're getting enough sleep and you're getting enough protein and you're building more muscle, you're creating more storage tanks in your muscle for glycogen. So you're going to become more insulin sensitive. Another win, right? And then when you are then also considering the fact that you're not pumping a load of sugar in through your diet, now we're taking on less sugar coming in, so become again better at responding to them. But if there's excess and those storage tanks are full, that is going to accumulate in terms of in fat. So that's what's called sugar burning. Your body will always use glycogen first, convert it into glucose, and then use that energy source, right? If you do either carb cycling, where we do low or no carb days on the non-training days, if we do intermittent fasting, which I want to talk to you about today, then what happens at a certain point when blood sugar levels drop, because nothing's coming in with carbs or sugar in it, effectively the pancreas now the body sends a signal to the pancreas to release a hormone called glycagon. Glycagon's job is to do the reverse of what insulin is, which is to go to the muscle and the liver and convert glucose into glycogen. So glycogen into glucose, put that in the bloodstream, and then elevate blood sugar levels so we return back to homeostasis. Now, once the depletion of glycogen has took place in the muscle and the liver, now we can go into fat burning. So it's only then we can switch into that gear. And where does that take place? Well, the optimum place that happens is it's between 18 hours from that point going forward. So when we look at a 24-hour fast, which is the kind of what I recommend as the gold standard once a week, 24-hour fast, you get all of these benefits without it being too excessive. I wouldn't do a 72-hour fast myself, so I don't recommend it, but you can go as long as 72 hours where you don't break down muscle. All right. But again, what I believe is possible to do, because I do it, is 24-hour. And the way that I do it is let's say I was doing it tonight, stop eating at 6 p.m. tonight and have my last meal, go to bed, I wake up the next day, skip breakfast, skip lunch, and then I'm having my next meal at 6 p.m. So again, I'm sleeping for a lot of it. It only feels like I'm skipping 2 meals effectively. Still have water, can still have black coffee, black tea, herbal drinks, just nothing with sugar in it, nothing with milk in it.
Just a question, mate. You know, we were talking about the resets. Obviously, we've done the 10-day and we've got the keto reset. Where would you put that 24-hour fast alongside that? Can that give you a similar sort of, benefits from it?
Absolutely, yeah. These are all options. So the clean 10 is not the clean 10 is purely a whole food approach, taking out some of the things that cause allergies. So like if I was to label it, I'd label it allergy test, but getting people to eat clean, right? And then reintroducing foods to see what triggers. Keto is doing this, is getting your body to deplete glycogen stores because you're not introducing, there's no carbohydrates coming in. And effectively, but you're doing it in a fed state rather than a fasted state. So you still get into depleting your glycogen stores and tapping into fat stores because that's the only fuel source that you're putting in your body during that process. So keto is one option. As I mentioned, the lighter approach, the sort of the middle ground is, carb cycling, where you do higher carb days on your training days, I'd say no carb days if you really want to get into, that fat burning store. Then effectively no carbs on the days that you're not training. So that's another option. Or the other way to do it is lifestyle plan, right? I mean, you can combine these things, right? But effectively lifestyle plan with what you're doing right now. with a 24-hour in once a week, right? Or once every 2 weeks or once every month. Try to do it, because what the benefit is basically you go beyond that 18 hours. First of all, human growth hormone for females increases by up to 1,300%. For males, up to 2,000%. That is key for building muscle, reducing body fat, and feeling good. The next one is you've depleted all your glycogen stores at the 18-hour mark. So now you're fully into converting fats into ketones, which is why it's called ketogenic diet, ketones, and using that as a source of fuel. So that's number 2. And then also you trigger something called autophagy, which is cleaning out damaged cells. So effectively it's an anti-aging benefit. All right. So rather than damaged cells duplicating, you actually are cleaning those out through that process of autophagy. So it's like a repair mechanism when you basically give your digestive system a rest for that period of time. Now, I'll just caveat that with training. What do you do on training wise?
I was just about to ask that.
Yeah.
Sorry, mate.
So if you do the 24-hour, don't do strength training in the middle of it. Do it at the end of it if you want to do strength training on that day, or look at your diary so that you don't do strength training on the day that you're doing the 24-hour. Why I say at the end, because it needs to be broken with some protein in order to start that repair process. So again, strength training at the end of a 24-hour. So you do it hour 23, for example, strength train, go and eat your meal, and then obviously getting a good amount of protein in that meal when you do. The other option would be to stay in the fat burning zone 2, and do something light. So it's a light cardio. Zone 2 cardio, by the way, is your age minus 220, and it's between 60 and 70% of that max heart rate. So your max heart rate's 220 minus your age, and then 60 to 70% of that number is where you want to be in that zone for maximizing fat as a fuel source. If you go above that, your body goes, we need glycogen. So again, it's in a different state to burn calories when you're doing that. So it's most effective to do an intermittent fast and doing things like a walk on an incline, or trying to add some sort of resistance that gets it up to a point where you sit between that ratio of 60 to 70% of your max heart rate. Okay. Or you can just go, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to do a fast. I'm going to give myself a free pass. And just try and increase your steps would be an added bonus on top of that. Okay. Does that cover the question, Michael?
Mate, just so obviously when you've done the 24-hour, by the time I come to that 6 o'clock in the evening, I would imagine I'm going to be fairly hungry. So in terms of calorie intake at that meal, would you still try and keep it low, or would it matter if you hit your 2,000 for that day, or are you sort of reversing the effects? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So look, again, you give yourself a free pass on the calorie intake when you're tracking, because again, rather than trying to chase the calories, remember you've got a low number and you've got a high number. So if I was doing an intermittent fasting day on Wednesday, I wouldn't expect to come in on that. I'd expect to come, I'd give myself a pass on not chasing the calories. So instead of going, oh, well, I'm at 9,800, let's just say I dropped 90, I'd allow for 1,900 lesser than that number, because this guy's calories is 1,900. So I take the 1,900 off the lowest number, so that you're not trying to chase calories. What I would say though is, if you really want to optimize the intermittent fast, that next meal would be a high protein, high good fats meal. It wouldn't be I wouldn't put carbs in if you really want to optimize it, because then that way you're kind of just going straight in from fasting into keto, and therefore you're still staying in that fat loss, that fuel source of glycagon being released rather than insulin being released. Yeah. So that's an advanced way of doing it at the end. But if you want to obviously just the golden rule is don't eat crap it because you've just done all the good. Don't undo it with, you know, a meal that isn't a balanced whole food meal, or a keto style meal would be the sort of the advanced preference.
Okay, mate. Thanks.
Cool. And that is effectively it. And that's one of the reasons, one of the things that I want you to try and incorporate into this process, because the intermittent fasting, whether it's carb cycling, whether it's doing keto for a period of time, will make you more insulin sensitive, which will mean that your body will respond better to carbohydrates, especially if you're using more complex carbohydrates as well. The only other thing that I would add into the equation when trying to become more insulin sensitive, this is on days that this isn't when you're obviously intermittent fasting, you're not eating cinnamon, but cinnamon's a great addition to anyone's diet because it makes you more insulin sensitive as well. So any spices like cinnamon was specifically for that purpose, but also garlic, cayenne pepper, fenugreek, turmeric. Like, try and get this stuff in your diet because it all has health benefits.
Yeah, I mean, I eat a lot of that stuff, so you know what I mean. Especially at home when I'm cooking, I use a lot of that, so not a problem, man.
Perfect. Okay, right. Well, that is everything I had on my list. So, Kerry, are you still there?
I think she's left. She just put a message in the chat.
Okay. Yeah, and is there anything else, Michael, before we close out?
No, that's it, Mark. That's it. Everything's good. I was just funny that you brought up holidays because I went to bloody Centre Parks when I was home. Not bloody. It was great, but it was barbecues. It was, there was a lot of high protein, but it wasn't what I've been doing, and the training was low. I mean, I was going to go to the gym when I was there, and my wife obviously laughed at me, but I did say I was going to go, and it's about 20 quid a session to go to the gym. Yeah. And I was like, so obviously I was on the bike every day and I was walking. So even though I haven't got an Apple Watch, which I am going to invest in, or some sort of tracker, I think I was getting that regular exercise. We didn't stop when we were there. We were out, but obviously drinking a bit more, eating a bit more. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I felt like when I done my pictures this month, I didn't see as much of a change and as I had done, and I know that you used that as a really good tool, and I could see it was similar-ish, so obviously I'm back on it, full on it now on the boat. Obviously we have our challenge with the diet, but I'm doing pretty well. Lots of high protein. There's been a lot of fish available for me. Anything, when I see something, I'll keep it and refrigerate it and sort of do it that way if I see something really good. Obviously I've got me Huel and the good protein, the raw protein, but now seeing raw do that protein, the food, I'll probably substitute that out. So yeah, but fully back on it, trained every day. Well over me, I'm 12,000 steps a day. So hopefully by the end of this 2 weeks, I'll start to see a little bit, even though it was a little bit of a drop off. But like you say, it's life, isn't it, mate? You know what I mean?
Is. And if you can't enjoy those occasions, mate, what's the point, right? Again, yeah. I always come back to, you should be able to say, I could do this forever. I see it as a result. If somebody goes on holiday and they were able to say the same, I think that's amazing. But even if they gained a pound in that week, in the grand scheme of the weeks that we've got in the entire year, it's yeah. minor. So remember, the goal is always to kind of look at that average line and go, am I moving in the right direction? I know there'll be the odd spike here and there, but the average line will continue to trend down. And you've got fun and enjoyment in the equation, and you've cracked the code.
I think for me, I think that the main, even though I would always say that I've always ate well, my mum was a good cook, I enjoy cooking. I just think it's that thing, the habits, and then looking at something when you're not on holiday, when you're not going out, by saying, do you know what, I'm going to stick to this. And the girls have noticed, they've like, you've really have stuck to it, mate. I was sitting there the other night, I made some homemade tortillas with the flat, with the what are they? You can put them in the oven with some spices in there, but I used some oil, and I just let them eat and made a salsa, and they were eating them. I never touched them, and the girls were like, "You're not having any, Dad?" Do you know what I mean? I was like, "No, I'm fine." Do you know what I mean? I'm okay. And just getting them habits going. So I think for me, it's that awareness that's really working. And also people have noticed, you know what I mean? People are saying, like, especially the girls, God, Dad, you've lost a load of weight. And I think that's, it's a good example, isn't it, as well? Do you know what I mean? Of where I want to be. And as I say, I'm 46. So I think, I look at some of my friends, not to be derogatory, but I wonder to myself how they're ever going to start the wheels in motion again. I've always been in the gym, in and out, but you buy a new house, Mark, kids come along, things get in the way. You're not as routine, you're not as habit formed. And I look at some of the guys and I was thinking, bloody hell, mate, you're going to struggle. You know what I mean? Because you literally haven't trained for 20 years. And it's like, I don't want to end up like that. I just want to, I've got this habit going now, keep it going. I've got the gym at home. I find it more difficult home, to be honest with you. I have to like force 4 weeks into 2 weeks. So but getting there, the training drops off when I'm away, but I'm still getting the 4 in a week. I'm still getting my steps in, so
Yeah,
it's all good, mate.
And that's it. It's like, other people noticing you, that's huge, right? Because you don't tend to notice it on yourself as much. But the other thing as well is that, you also got to look at some of the health markers and, is my energy better? Is my focus better? Am I sleeping better? All of those things that we kind of can forget about as we get further into the process. And again, as long as we've got that fun and enjoyment in the equation, and the more, like I say, the more you try, the more the ripple effect will be with the family as well, because you get them involved in the process. The key is to be planned and think the week through before it begins, which again, that's why the weekly commitments is so important.
Yeah, I know I'm terrible with them. I must admit I am terrible. But you know what? I'm pretty focused, you know what I mean? Especially when I'm out here, I'm like, I understand the commitment and there is commitment to be made, but I've already made it. And I know we should still use them, but with the food, it goes out the window. I could write whatever I wanted on there. I have to just be, do you know what I mean, regimented. Guys are sitting down, they're eating the chips, they're eating the dessert. I haven't had since we started, I haven't had the dessert on the vessel. A little bit of chocolate here and there, and but I've not had. They have cakes, Mark. It's that they're up there to be taken any second of the day throughout the day, and guys are walking around with them with cups of coffee, and I haven't touched them. I haven't touched them since the process. I haven't touched them since. I wouldn't say it was a huge dessert eater anyway, but everyone likes a bit of this ice cream. It's there, cakes all day. Just just go in there. Yeah, sugar, and I haven't touched them. So I am pretty focused when it comes to that. And one thing I would say is, I don't know, a combination of that Cambo that we had, which was like the maddest thing I've ever had done in my life. Do you know what I mean? But it was brilliant because there was definitely an improvement. But I think the weight loss as well, my back must be. I'm still going to go for physio because NHS owe me this, you know what I mean? I'm still going to go because there is still something niggling there, but I'm not going to tell them that either. I must be 85% better, 90% better.
I'll send you something that I've been using, and honestly, I don't know if it's correlated or not, but my back has been really good since starting it. I've only been on it for about 3 weeks now. It's called black seed oil. It has a bit of a medicinal taste to it, so I'll give you the tip before you get it. Obviously, you knock it back. It's just on a spoon. Pour it on a spoon, and 5 grams with some milk, because again, that it kind of takes away the taste. It's a bit of a weird taste. But yeah, again, like that's anti-inflammatory. So like we talk about Cambos that are anti-inflammatory, but also the seed oil to sort of day-to-day maintenance as a good addition.
No, brilliant, mate. As I say, I mean, I know you've got other things to do, mate, but I am convinced. Like I attempt to play golf, and I had like either golfer's elbow, tennis elbow, both elbows a few years back. Honestly, Mark, horrific. You know what I mean? And it was like anything this way was fine, but say I just like tried to pick, like a dish out the dishwasher. Honestly, the pain, and I started taking that red krill oil, and my wife turned around to me and said to me, "Oh, you haven't mentioned your elbow," and I'm convinced that it was that. Mark, honestly, I am, because it was, and I make sure to take it's good quality. I read the numbers on the back, and you pay a bit extra for it, but and I'm convinced it was that, mate. I am, you know what I mean? So I take that religiously.
Yeah, well, what is going on? And again, this is when you start to take out sugar. So sugar causes inflammation, but also omega-6 to omega-3 ratio causes inflammation, right? So typically Americans 20-1, which should be 4-1 max, right? Where omega-6 to omega-3. Obviously, omega-3 is obtained through oily fish, the particular parts that we really need, EPA and DHA. So salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardine, herring, that type of thing. When we have more omega-3 in, obviously reduces inflammation in the body, and therefore any aches and pains are amplified with inflammation. So again, what's happening there is it's down regulating your inflammation, which is down regulating the pains, the aches and pains being amplified. So krill oil, absolutely, because it's a great source of omega-3.
Yeah.
And this obviously this has got omega-3s in it, and it's specifically an anti-inflammatory. So yeah.
Brilliant, mate. I'm open to anything like that. You think, you know what I mean? I'm open to it, you know what I mean? Trying that stuff. So by all means, mate, one thing I do need to do, and lastly, is I'm going to definitely try that slimline wine and the beer one that you showed me. You never seem to get round to it, do you know what I mean? But and it's quite reasonable, so I think I'm going to give that a go as well, just as an added bonus for me, do you know what I mean? Because obviously I'll go home, we'll go out the weekends. It's just part of the life for me, do you know what I mean? And you know, I wouldn't even consider myself not a heavy drinker, but I don't drink in the week. But if I have a drink, I have a drink. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think it'll be definitely beneficial. But yeah, mate, as I say, all good as always, mate. I enjoyed it. So yeah, here's to the next 3 months. Let's see where we can go.
Let's go, buddy. But yeah, keep up the great work. And again, you're just getting back into that flow now, which is good. So if there's anything you need, mate, just give me a shout.
Brilliant, Mark. Thanks very much, mate.
You're
Enjoy your
welcome.
day. Cheers, buddy. Bye now, mate.